Easter is a story about return, about a stone rolled away, about breath restored where silence has settled. It is a promise humanity has told itself for centuries, that what is buried does not stay buried. The waiting is rewarded, that absence is temporary. But stories are cycles, and cycles depend on completion. This is not a tale of resurrection fulfilled, but of expectation unmet, of a morning prepared for miracle and given only to stillness. In a universe where the stars are hollow, even faith is subject to timing. This is The Day Nothing Rose. On the morning it was meant to happen, the village woke early. No one had agreed to this, but windows opened almost at once, kettles were set on stoves and forgotten, curtains were drawn back and left hanging, half asleep. There was a sense, quiet, shared and unspoken, that the day required attention. Outside, the fields lay as they had the night before. Frost still traced the edges of the soil, buds clinging tightly to their branches, neither opening nor retreating. Birds gathered on fence posts, but didn't sing. Even the dogs, usually frantic at first light, sat down and waited, their attention attentive rather than calm. People noticed small delays. A clock hesitated between seconds, as if uncertain whether to proceed. Breath lingered longer than it should have in the air. A woman carrying bread from the oven paused at her doorway, uncertain why she'd stopped, only that moving forward felt inappropriate, that if she might interrupt something already underway. They waited for something to rise. No one said this aloud. The language for it had softened over generations, worn smooth by repetition and habit. There were no rituals anymore, no precise instructions. Only a memory of expectation, passed down as instinct rather than story. By mid-morning, the pause no longer felt patient. It pressed inwards, a held interval that could not be resumed without consequence. In the old church at the centre of the village, the doors stood open. The building was empty. Candles had been set out of habit, then left unlit. Several wicks bent, as though someone had tested them and stopped. The stone floor felt colder than usual, as if it had been waiting longer than the people. Concern crept in, not panic, but a subtle unease, like realising a familiar sound had stopped and you cannot remember when. Children asked questions their parents couldn't quite hear. Farmers stood at the edges of their land, tools in hand, sensing resistance where none had existed before, as though the soil itself had decided to delay. Beneath the village, in places not marked on any map, nothing stirred. The dead did not return. The buried did not shift. The earth held what it had taken, firm and closed, as if instructed to keep everything this time. By noon the air had thickened. Clouds gathered without moving, light dulled, losing its warmth. A few villagers felt a sudden, sharp grief for reasons they could not name. Others experienced relief, brief and shameful, like being told a difficult task had been cancelled. Waiting now felt like pressure, something applied rather than chosen. They told themselves stories to fill the space, that it had never been real, that waiting was enough, that nothing was required of them now. And far below, where no stories were told anymore, the absence registered. The interruption marked not as a loss, but as failure of sequence. It had waited through centuries of offerings, of belief worn thin and renewed again. It had endured carelessness, doubt, and forgetting. But this absence, this failure of return, was different. The cycle had not completed. As evening approached, the ground cooled too quickly. Roots tightened, stones shifted in ways that didn't break the surface, but changed its shape forever. The village felt smaller, its boundaries drawing inwards, as though the world beyond had gently stepped back. That night, no one dreamed. And in the dark beneath the soil, where patience had once been enough, something older than rising began to move upwards. Not because it was summoned, but because nothing else had come. They had waited for a familiar return, for comfort shaped like memory, for the assurance that the earth still obeyed old agreements. But resurrection is not guaranteed. It's a pattern, and patterns once broken do not simply repeat. What stirred beneath the soil was not salvation. It didn't rise to prayer, nor in defiance of death. It rose because the space was empty, because nothing else came. In the hollow places of the universe, absence is not neutral, it's an invitation. And when the promised return fails, something else will always answer instead. Thank you for listening. If this story resonated with you, consider sharing it, especially today, a day built on the expectation that something must rise. The stars are hollow, and they are still watching.